Op het Imagine Film Festival was Bob Murawski te gast, die als vaste editor van regisseur Sam Raimi onder meer meewerkte aan de Spiderman trilogie en een Oscar won voor zijn montage van The Hurt Locker.
As an editor, you kind of deal with like every part of the movie making process. You're not only dealing with telling the story and working with the actors and working with the performances, but you're also working with the sound, working with the music, working with the visual effects. I think it's well edited when it doesn't seem boring, when it's short, it doesn't seem too long, when the scenes are clear and understandable, if they're supposed to be. I mean, obviously some scenes you're supposed to be confused, but for the most part, if the performances are as good as they can be, because I think part of editing is like really going through all the takes and really making the performances work from all these kind of little pieces.
But you of course, you have to work with what there is.
You have to work with what there is, but I think you learn along the way a lot of tricks for making things better. Cutting things out that aren't good, you know, focusing on things that are good. Focus really is the most important part of the job. We're like really focusing on knowing what's important and telling the story the best it can possibly be told.
I think you've worked with Sam Raimi for about 7 or 8 times. Mm-hmm. How did that collaboration start?
Well, for me it started as a fan. I mean, when I saw the original Evil Dead 1, it was just this crazy movie that when I saw it I immediately responded to it because I was such a horror fan. And I never thought I would have a chance to work with him, but I just was like loved the movie. And several years later I got the opportunity. I had moved out to California. A friend of mine was working on Sam's movie, Darkman, and I got the opportunity to work on it as a really low level position, like a production assistant.
89 or 90?
Yeah. And then I ended up working in editorial, and it was such a long process that by the end of it, I was like one of the last people working on it, and I actually ended up getting able to do some editing on the movie. And we really, struck it off and had I think a good working relationship. And I think he realized that I was somebody he could trust, to be his ally. And it's very important in filmmaking to have allies and people who you can work with and have similar personalities but mostly trust. Sometimes on bigger movies especially, the studios have invested so much money that they feel pressure to interfere. And a lot of times they have good intentions, they think they're making the movie better, but really they're ruining it. And they don't understand things, so they want to cut things out. They try to make the movies dumber for the audience because they don't think people will like it, even though the audience has never seen it. They want to over-explain everything. So, I mean, people always think that studios want to make movies shorter, cut things up, but really, a lot of times they want to make things longer because they really want to dumb movies down. And how do you do that? You put in exposition and you over-explain things. So, and a lot of times they don't like unusual things. I mean, they want things to be more homogenous. So yeah, when I say ally, I mean, it's really like a lot of times it's the director and editor fighting against the studio, and I'm the guy who's in charge of the cut. So I'm really trying to keep things, good, whereas 50 other people are trying to ruin them. There are editors and directors who work together, I mean, where you wonder where the editor ends and where the director begins. I mean, we're always talking about Hitchcock, but Hitchcock had a great editor, George Tomasini, and you see the movies that he edited versus the movies that other people edited for Hitchcock. And the Tomasini movies are the classics, like Psycho, North by Northwest, The Birds, and Vertigo, and then some of the later movies where he had passed away and Hitchcock had a different editor, it doesn't have nearly the impact. So I think really he was part of that team.
Is there some secret to say Hitchcock, the editing?
I think it was a combination of Hitchcock really planning, really understanding the importance of every shot. And I think the key to good editing is that every shot is important. It's every shot should be motivated, every edit should be important. When I'm editing, for me a lot of times it's more about trying to figure out when not to cut than when to cut. I mean, I always try to let things play as long as possible. You try to hold on the actor's face and not cut away if it's strong and emotional. And not become, just because you have all this footage doesn't mean you have to use it. I think the reason that the first Sam Spider-Man movies, at least the first 2, were so successful is that he really concentrated on the relationships. For him, the most important thing was Peter Parker and his transformation from this nerdy guy who wasn't like not a superhero to a guy who had all this responsibility, and also the relationship between Peter Parker and Mary Jane, the romantic relationship. So I think by making those the emphasis as opposed to making the special effects and the extravagance and the CGI, knowing that the human story was the most important story and everything else was supporting it, and not losing track of the fact that it was about a human being.
I think in 3 it kind of already lost that.
3 it did, and we still tried to concentrate on it, but I mean there was so much meddling from the studio and the producers and everybody. On the 3rd movie, everybody thought that they were the creative force behind the movie, including the actors, and everybody had a different idea. And when you have too many different ideas, it just becomes a mishmash.
Do actors do that?
Yeah, actors. It's funny because like every actor that I've ever met, whether they're an actor I respect or an actor that I don't, or even actors with smaller parts, they'll come into the editing room and see a movie, and usually their first note is, well, I'm not only saying this because I'm in the scene, but I really think that there needs to be more close-ups of me. And they'll always say, but I'm not saying it just because it's me, but I really think that my character is like important here. And usually, you're picking the best shots, and you don't want to be on the actor's face the whole time. You don't want to be in the close-up the whole time, but they're very. That's usually always their note, and sometimes they can force the movie to do that. But luckily, you always want to try to make it seem like they get their way. Or sometimes they do have a good idea, but usually not. I mean, because they don't know the overall picture.